got an understanding. We're on a mission from God.
They shouldn't have given you ashy blokes YouTube.
Cursed be the ground for our sake. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for us. For out of the ground we were taken, for the dust we are. And to the dust we shall return.
All right, good people. All right, good people. Back in the house. Had to take a few days off. Get the juices rolling again. And today should be, I saw an article in the Atlantic talking about the great feminization, okay? And what it's talking about, the article was saying that the manosphere, America is becoming the manosphere. So, and that was in the Atlantic. One of the, what is it? The Atlantic is like 150 years old. Okay, one of the great magazines in the United States is now talking about the manosphere and how it's taken over. So we are here. You guys wanted to see where the manosphere is, and people keep saying the manosphere is dead. Guess what? We're here. Okay, we're not dead yet. Oh, Jermaine is on first. Okay, he beamed in. That's illegal, AB Media. It's in media. You can't beam into the game like that. Okay. What's going on, Trail? Batting second. Towel, what's happening? The Black Toxic, what's going on? Batting cleanup. All right. Bring them home. St. Cyr, what's happening? Shannon Moore. Luther, what's happening? Excalibur. Shannon Green, what's going on? Rise Films, what's going on? Eddie, what's happening? How's the NYC? I mean, they had this chick on from Brooklyn, man, tell me she wasn't gully. Black chick from Brooklyn saying she ain't gully, and she ain't gully. Henderson, what's happening? No Fear Jahir. Jesse, what's happening? Scorpion Black, what's happening? Fernando. Adric. Independent POV, what's happening? Kevin. Mark Muhammad. Salute Sensei IBMOR, never dull moment in his YouTube streets. Any thoughts on CG Andrew Wilson? I saw some of it. I think it was more performative than anything else, okay? Because I would surmise that 90% of what they think they would probably agree on. Except he's a tradcon, okay? Even though he's slightly red pill, he's a tradcon, believes in marriage. And guess who doesn't? John Smith, what's going on? Mel L, what's happening? Louis. Dame, what's going on? Gundam, what's happening? Kelvin was going to send you Helen Andrews cooking out here. Great minds think. I saw it last week when it happened. So it's been floating around. And then I saw the article in the Atlantic with the feminists coming out against it. So her and Scott Galloway are really trying to sound the line. They better, okay, if they want to. They better if they actually want to save this country. Palm Beach Mike, what's going on? Barry Little, what's happening? Okay, and Greg. AHD Trail, what's happening? Horowitz, Prince, what's going on? A6, what's going on? Beetle, what's happening? Barry, what's going on? Jeffrey says, super sticker, appreciate you. Indigo Flow, what's happening? To the dust, I heard that. Sick. Name it, what's happening? Eric says, hit the like button on your way in. LAXT, what's happening? Bo Johnson, what's happening? Willie R, what's going on? I said, Sky High job was shut down, government, and a nearly defunct airports can't keep me away. I heard that. Mark Muhammad, what's happening? Enigma, what's going on? Shannon Green, my thoughts on the passing of VP Cheney. Okay, Darth Sidious is dead. Okay. They drove a stake through his heart, his probably third heart. Babu, Mark Bryant, what's going on? Al, what's going on? I'm still here with you. I heard that. I needed some rest. I heard that. Coach DC, what's happening? Sir Him, what's going on? Sir Him joined me. Sir Him got a full dose of May. He hung in there, man. He hung in. Sir Him was throwing his shots though. Sir Him was throwing his shots. Jaron, what's going on? Mr. Sir, why don't you calm down, man? Because the next time you're gonna get blocked, okay? Binkanon, what's going on? Harvest 2, what's happening? IBMOR, I regret to inform you, GTA 6 was delayed yet again. Can we say it? 1, 2, 3, bugs. You ain't gonna miss no money. Bugs. Passport OG, appreciate you. Donald Smith. Kelvin. Let's see what else we got. Kareem, what's happening? Harvest 2, what's going on? And Third Heart, yep. He has had 3 of them, I do believe. Yeah, he's had 3 hearts. He's had 2 heart transplants, so had 3 hearts. Shark Sims, what's going on? Dr. Els, what's going on? Dr. Els, go to Dr. Els did a review on CGA and Wilson. So go to his channel. You want to put the link in, Dr. Els? You sure can. I heard some stuff, but most of it was like, yeah, you know, they were basically mostly it was actually banter more than anything, any good points. I didn't hear anything that was different. He tried to argue for marriage, but he really couldn't, especially for black men. Okay, what they found out is marriage is actually a detriment to black men's health. So so all the advantages they talk about, you getting married, making more money, and living longer. Okay, that's for other people. It's not for you. So whatever the reason, getting with a black woman is not conducive to your health. Ninja Person, what's going on, man? Ninja Person, what is a good book for SAA? Have I ever thought about being an engineer? No, I did actually, because I was going to school for chemistry, and the job I had, I was thinking about transitioning to a double E, electrical engineer, like a lot of guys, because that was more conducive to the work I was actually doing. And women and kids, man. Anyhow, let's get busy. Hey, Dirty Foot Jose in the house. Yeah, go to Dr. L did a 2-part series. Yeah, yeah. There's in fact there's 2 papers on opposite sides of the scale, right? In other words, for black people, marriage does not give the same benefits in this society as other people, okay? Because black women say the same thing and black men say the same thing, okay? It's better for a black man to marry outside of his race than to marry inside of his race. So you don't need a book for SAA, however, tutorials, Dojo was great. It was great. And piece of code on. Okay, all right. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get busy. Let's see if I can find it, because I want to find the article, because they actually mentioned the manosphere. They said, okay, here it is. Let me show it. Let me show it. This is the article. If I think am I signed in? See if I'm signed in real quick. I might play a little bit of it. Yeah, I am signed in. And this is the original one that got me interested. So I'm going to play a little bit of this, okay? Because she's saying that that Donald Trump and the Republicans are turning the United States into a manosphere. Possibly. Okay, but the thing is, even with married men in the black in the black community, okay, most black men that are married die early. It's like a mama gets the house. Okay, most black men in the black community die early if they're married. Okay, and it's been that way for a very long time. So did you see that new Summer Walker album cover? No, I have not seen it. I have not seen it. Yeah, hey, Sir. Yeah, Sir Him was going in, man. Sir Him was going in. Anyway, let's go ahead and play a little bit of it. I think we can play a little bit of it. Let's speed it up. Let's speed it up a tad.
You're cut from a different cloth. And with Bank of America Private Bank, you have an entire team tailored to your needs, with wealth and business strategies built for the biggest ambitions, like yours. Whatever your passion, unlock more powerful possibilities at privatebank.bankofamerica.com. What would you like the power
Sir Him was a reformed Pookie, okay? Let's not get it twisted.
to do? Bank of America, official bank of the FIFA World Cup 2026. Bank of America Private Bank is a division of Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, and a wholly owned subsidiary of Bank of America Corporation.
You're listening to No, Women Aren't the Problem by Sophie Gilbert, published on the 5th of November, 2025. This audio article was produced by 11 Labs and NOAA, News Over Audio, using an AI voice. You can listen to more of the world's best journalism on the NOAA app or at newsoveraudio.com. Helen Andrews' essay, The Great Feminization, reached my feed on the same day that photos spread of the East Wing of the White House, the space traditionally reserved for the First Lady and her staff, reduced to rubble. The spectacle was almost too on the nose. Here was the nexus of women's limited history within the executive branch, once home to Jacqueline Kennedy's Rose Garden and Laura Bush's restored movie theater, now totally demolished. Donald Trump has made clear his wishes to put a new ballroom in the East Wing's place, but his planned additions to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue also include the installation of an Ultimate Fighting Championship octagon for America's 250th birthday celebration. The former UFC star Conor McGregor, an Irishman whose Wikipedia subsection for rape and sexual assault cases is 982 words long, was personally hosted by the president in the Oval Office in March. So, about that great feminization. Andrews's thesis, published by the online magazine Compact, is that everything wrong with institutions in America comes down to the growing influence of women. Women, she argues, have implemented wokeness across the land, and her evidence for this is the outrage over Larry Summers's comments about whether women might have less natural aptitude for math and science, which led to his resignation as president of Harvard University in 2006. Her 3,400-word essay seems to assert that wokeness is inherently feminine, prizing empathy over rationality, safety over risk, cohesion over competition, and that women, with all our feelings and conflict avoidance, are ruining the nation's most fundamental institutions. If women continue to make inroads, she argues, adding to the ranks of doctors and lawyers and judges and business people, then the eruption of insanity in 2020, by which she means the mass protests and efforts to address racial inequality following the death of George Floyd, was just a small taste of what the future holds. The Great Feminization catastrophizes wildly about the future, presumably because what's happening in the present utterly undermines its central thesis. 85% of Republicans in Congress are men. From January to August, an estimated 212,000 women left the American workforce, while 44,000 men gained jobs. Black women are being disproportionately, perhaps even intentionally, excised from the federal workforce. According to a new assessment from the Ankler, only 4 of the top 100 American films in 2025 so far have been directed or co-directed by women. Democrats are currently so desperate.
That's why she's saying that the pendulum is swinging back the other way. Okay, that's what she's trying to say. In other words, now, but the thing is, the biggest thing is, okay, is that America is becoming the manosphere. Okay, before we were a joke. This is the Atlantic, okay? This is the Atlantic, and guess what? They're mentioning what? The manosphere. So we have done our job, okay? Y'all want to be recognized and seen as a force and seen as to be taken seriously now? Guess what? You're taken seriously now. So we have done our job. Like I said, the Black Manosphere 2.0 is a success. So anybody saying that it's dead, that it didn't do anything, bullshit, okay? Bullshit. Anyhow, let's go ahead, because we got her potted up. I think we got her potted up. Okay, national conservatism. All right. I think we had her potted up. This is her speech that she gave. We might get into a little bit more in depth, but this is the speech that she gave. I think it's a couple weeks ago. Helen Andrews, okay, on the Great Feminization. Okay, she actually really went into more detail, but this is the initial speech that she gave that set off all the alarm bells. Wokeness equals conscious culture vulturing. Yep, it is. Not anymore, okay?
The libertarian economist Tyler Cowen once wrote a blog post describing all of the revolutions he's seen in the course of his lifetime, starting with the moon landing when he was a little boy and going up chronologically to today's advent of AI. And there were only 7 revolutions on this list because this was only the greatest and most earth-shaking ones. And right there, between the fall of communism and the invention of the internet, was something called the Great Feminization. That is not a phrase that a lot of Americans know, but future historians may well rank it as having greater importance than almost any other revolution on that list. The Great Feminization is very easy to define. It refers to the increasing representation of women in all of the institutions of our society. But as simple as it is to define, it's very difficult for those of us on the other side of that revolution to fully grasp its significance. The first thing that most people fail to understand about it is how unprecedented it is in human history.
True.
There have been many societies that have been feminist to one degree or another, in which women have been queens and owned businesses and held positions of authority that commanded the respect of men. But there has never been a society in which women hold as much political power as they do today. Think of all of the parliaments that have ever existed, every legislature in every country.
I mean, look at Virginia. You had 2 women running for governor. You had 2 women run for governor in Virginia. 2 women, okay, no men. 2 women run for governor in Virginia, okay, on both tickets, unprecedented.
In every century. None of them has been, as ours is, 1/3 female. The idea of a female chief of police would have seemed very strange even to many early feminists. And yet today, the police department is led by a woman in the largest city in America and in the city in which we are now standing.
Yes.
Law schools today are majority female. Law
Yes.
firm associates are majority female. Medical schools are majority female. Women earn a majority of BAs and PhDs. College faculty are majority female. Women are 46% of the managers in the United States, and the white-collar workforce overall, workers with college degrees, a majority of them are women.
Mm-hmm.
These are, in many cases, very recent developments, with the tipping point having occurred only in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yep. Especially after Obama and 2011 with the what is it? I forget. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. Okay.
And that is the other common misconception about the Great Feminization. People tend to think of feminism as something that occurred back in the 1970s, but it took several decades to go from token.
Isn't it interesting that the author of that piece cried about Black women losing jobs, but had no concern of the jobs that Black men have lost for decades? Nope. They're only using Black women as a shield. They don't care about Keisha losing her job. Oh yeah, the dear colleague letter. Yep.
Representation to approximate gender parity. The first woman on the Supreme Court was appointed in 1981, and in that year, women were 5% of the judges in America. Today, there are, of course, 4 women on the court, 1 justice away from a female majority, and women are 30% of the judges in America, 40% of the judges in the state of California, and 63% of the judges appointed by President Joe Biden. So from the first woman on the court to a likely female majority on the Supreme Court is probably going to be a span of about 50 years. And the exact same trajectory over the same timeline can be seen in many other professions. There was a pioneering generation in the 1970s where a woman was often the only female reporter in her newsroom or the only female professor in her department, and then increasing female representation through the 80s and 90s until a healthy female representation of about 20 to 30% by the turn of the century. And today, 25 years later, in many of these fields, they are now 40% female or 50-50 gender equal. And the pendulum may not be done swinging yet. As feminized as we are, we may get more feminized still. Look at the example of the profession of psychology. As recently as 25 years ago, psychology was a predominantly male profession.
It was. I remember that. Okay. But most of your psychology graduates are female now.
70% male. Today, the youngest cohort of psychologists just joining the profession, 20% male. Men have evacuated the profession of psychology. And it's easy to understand why. It's because psychology has become feminized. As women increased their representation in the profession, they reoriented the field to be more friendly to their ideas and preferences, to be about caring and empathy and non-judgmentalism. So a man who wanted to become a psychologist because he liked judging other people would naturally choose a different profession.
That's true. That is true. They're non-judgmental, which is showing up in your education scores too. They don't judge. Okay, we listen and we don't judge. That's how come a C is 40%.
The same thing has occurred in literary fiction. Some of you may have read in the last 12 months one of several articles in the New York Times about how men don't read novels anymore. And the explanation why, which is very obvious.
Reeves and Galloway are walking on eggshells, okay, and they're trying to placate to the feminists.
Me, even if it's not obvious to the New York Times, is that the publishing industry is overwhelmingly female, almost 80% female. So men do still like to read novels. They just don't like to read the kinds of novels that today's publishing industry produces.
Yeah, it's true.
Some fields are more susceptible to feminization than others. There's very little you can do to feminize the field of math or engineering.
True.
But as women join a field in greater numbers, we should expect that any field that can be feminized will be, and the dynamic will play out exactly as it has in psychology. It may be that a 50-50 gender split is not a stable equilibrium. I have referred several times so far to feminization without defining what that means. I'll have a lot to say about it in just a moment, but if you want to put it in a single sentence, you could say that feminization equals wokeness. Everything you think of as wokeness is simply an epiphenomenon of demographic feminization. Think about all the things that wokeness means. Valuing empathy over rationality, safety over risk, conformity and cohesion over competition and hierarchy, all of these things are privileging the feminine over the masculine. So if you have ever wondered why wokeness appeared out of nowhere when it did, that is my hypothesis, that all of the institutions that began admitting women in the 1970s eventually got enough women that they were able to reorient them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, women are consistently less supportive of free speech. Than
Very true. That's like I used to disagree with Rush Limbaugh. Used to call them feminazis. Okay, used to hate that word because I hated Rush Limbaugh. But guess what? 40 years later, he's right. Feminazis. Okay. 1984 is here, but it's wearing a female face.
In surveys asking which is more important, protecting free speech or preserving an inclusive society, approximately 2/3 of men say free speech and approximately 2/3 of women say inclusive society.
Mm-hmm.
In moral reasoning, the traditional way of phrasing the difference between men and women is to say that women have an ethics of caring and men have an ethics of justice.
Mm-hmm.
In making a moral judgment, men will
That is true. That is true. That's become most societies that are large lean toward patriarchy because it has to. This is probably the first time in history where a liberal society or large societies are basically becoming female, matriarchal, and that's how come they're coming apart. Okay, because it doesn't work.
ask what are the rules and what are the facts. Women tend to be more interested in context and relationships. So let's apply that to wokeness. When James
And Landon, all right, Landon, you got your shot in. Let's calm it down. Okay, let's take this shit seriously. Okay.
IBMOR wrote his famous, or I should say notorious memo for Google, arguing that female underrepresentation in the hard sciences might not be the result of bias and prejudice, no one even attempted to argue that he was wrong on the facts. The reason that he was fired was because the things he had written might make his female coworkers feel bad.
True.
Or consider the Kavanaugh hearings. The masculine position was to say that maybe something bad happened to you, but if you do not have evidence, then we can't allow you to ruin a man's life and career over it.
No.
The feminine position was to say, how can you talk about rules of evidence? Can't you see she's crying?
Can't you see?
Now,
Yeah,
to
that's
be
true.
clear, many women were revolted by the way the Kavanaugh hearings played out. In fact, the very best book on the Kavanaugh hearings was written by two women, Molly Hemingway and Carrie Severino. But a political system in which men predominate will tend to operate according to rules of facts and objectivity, and one in which women predominate will tend to operate by the rules of emotions and subjective facts, so even if there are individual men and women who fall on the opposite side of those camps. There's a lot more that could be said about sex differences and wokeness, but I'll skip ahead to the controversial part of my argument. Because believe it or
skip ahead to the controversial part of our argument. Okay. I know they laughed. Yeah, because it's funny because he can't because she's saying what he can't. Okay, he wants to say it, but he can't say it because he's a man. But she can say it. Is this turning? Yeah, it is. It is. She just announced how it was turning the tide of feminization. That's why I played the first one first. Okay, that's why I played the first one first. Yeah, it's turning the tide of feminization. It already is.
or not, nothing I've said so far has been particularly controversial. So far, I have only made two claims. One, men and women are different. And two, as institutions become more female, they change in predictable ways according to those differences. I think even most people on the left would agree with that. Feminization is a great example of what Michael Anton calls the celebration parallax, which is a fancy term for anything where you're only allowed to notice something if you think it's a good thing. There are literally thousands of articles out there saying it's great that we have more women judges now because women are more empathetic, or it's good to have more women on corporate boards because that'll make capitalism more humane.
And it has not. It has not done any of that.
It is only when you say women are fundamentally changing the bedrock institutions of our society, and that might be bad, that you start to get into trouble. But I have two actually contentious claims today, and that is the first of them, that feminization is not just an interesting new development.
There's longer pieces, OG, but I want to get to the initial speech, okay? Because this is the one that set everything off, okay? If we got time, we'll play a little bit of her longer pieces.
has had some pluses and minuses. It's that feminization, in the case of many important institutions, is a bad thing.
Landon, chill out, man. Okay, chill out. If you don't know how it plays out, and you hear every day, and you listen to us every day, you don't know how it's playing out for the Black community already, then you don't need to be here.
In a few cases, it is so bad as to be, threaten the end of civilization. The rule of law, for example, is a very important thing. It's also very fragile. It requires a deep commitment to objectivity and clear rules, even when those rules yield an outcome that is not nice. I do not want judges who are more interested in context and relationships than in what the law says. Academia is the one part of our society that's supposed to be about finding and transmitting the truth. If it instead becomes about censoring ideas that are dangerous or threatening, then it no longer serves its purpose. In business, if the only way to advance at your company is to behave in the most HR compliant way possible, that's going to exclude and discourage the very people who are most likely to be leaders and innovators. I happen to think that the most important political issue in America today right now is immigration. And that is a perfect example of a political issue where the elite consensus is highly feminized. We have all of these laws on the books about citizenship and borders, but we're not allowed to enforce any of them if it might make somebody sad. So the rule of law, pursuit of truth, borders, innovation.
Women naturally want connection, okay, and that's how they operate, okay. That's why they operate better in a smaller community. Men want rules, okay. They want rules and order. That's why they work better in larger communities, okay. That's what they're trying to root out in the middle. Yep, that's what they're trying to root out because it doesn't work. Yeah.
Without these things, I am not being hyperbolic when I say that a thoroughly feminized civilization will set itself on the road to collapse.
It does.
So that is the first claim. The
it will, because of a thoroughly feminized society, okay, what's going to happen is the men won't participate, which is already happening, okay, which is why they're trying to reverse the pendulum, okay. I remember when I first started in this space, 2013, I do believe, 12 years ago. But basically what was going on is MGTOW, men going their own way, was a tiny fraction of the people. Most people are actually blue pill. Most men are actually blue pill, right? Right now, 70% of your men from 15 to 30 are MGTOW, okay? They're going their own way. They don't want to get married. A lot of them don't have girlfriends. They don't go on dates. None of that shit. Or in other words, they're avoiding female contact.
Is in many cases a bad and a threatening thing. The second claim proceeds from a question, and it's a very important question. Can we have demographic feminization in the literal sense without having substantive feminization of the kind that I believe is so dangerous? That is, can we have more female lawyers and judges and academics without having, or while still maintaining the old standards? Because in theory, of course, you can imagine such a thing. There certainly are enough women, there certainly are many women who have the talent and the inclination to meet the old standards. There are many women who are excellent judges. I know many female journalists who are just as hard-nosed and uncompromising as any of their male peers. There definitely are such women, but I am not sure that there are enough of them. Because the question is not, can some women be excellent professors? The question is it possible to have an academia that is majority female and is still as committed to and still respects the unhindered pursuit of unpopular truths?
No, they're not. You can see it because you can see that with Charlie Kirk. You can see with a whole bunch of people where the women are out there, damn near throwing blood. Okay.
As much as the old predominantly male academia did. I believe the answer is no. I believe demographic feminization does inevitably lead to substantive feminization.
Yeah, it does. We've already talked, most of the stuff we've already talked about, okay? Everything she has mentioned corresponds with Dr. T.S. Thunder and Dr. T.S. Johnson's reports on dysfunction going, and yeah, it has been for quite a while. For quite a while. For quite a while, okay? And Landon, I'm going to give you a chance to come up and voice it, man, since you really want to talk about this shit, okay? I'll give you a chance to come up in a minute, right after this finishes playing, okay? Since you really want to discuss this, okay? I don't know what the fuck your point is, okay? You really know what the fuck your point is.
It is a difficult thing to confront, but I genuinely believe it to be true. So what does that imply? What should we do about it? I hasten to make clear that I do not propose to ban women from any field or even to discourage them from pursuing their goals as far as their talents and ambitions will take them. I don't think we have to do anything as crazy as that. The only thing that I propose, and I think all that is necessary to solve the problem, is to take our thumb off the scale.
Yes, yes.
Because right now, in ways that many people don't quite appreciate, there is a thumb on the scale.
Yes, and that's all the manosphere said. Take the thumb off the scale. That's what the manosphere and the black manosphere especially said. We don't mind competing in a straight up fight, okay? But take your thumb off the scale. Especially, and black women are the last one that actually want to take their thumbs off the scale. They want to keep your. In fact, black women don't have a thumb on the scale. They have a whole foot on the scale. Okay, they want to keep their foot on black men's necks.
In favor of women. The most important example, of course, is anti-discrimination law. It is illegal to have too few women employed at your company. If women are statistically underrepresented in your institution, that is a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yes.
So companies and institutions give jobs to women that they would not otherwise have.
Ask Disney.
Gotten, give women promotions that they would not have otherwise gotten. And in a pinch, they create jobs that did not need to exist, involving PowerPoint slides, just to get their numbers up. This is why HR departments exist and why they promote gender diversity so assiduously, not because they're ideologues, although they are, obviously, but because they are protecting their company.
Yeah, they try to get MS Delta for a second, okay? Okay, the woke crew came from MS Delta in his job. His boss shut him down.
From lawsuits. Anti-discrimination law also mandates that the culture of every workplace be feminized. Because if the atmosphere of your workplace is too brash or competitive or combative, that is also a lawsuit waiting to happen because it is an indication that your workplace is not sufficiently welcoming to women. That is why HR departments are so zealous about policing every interaction and every communication and making sure none of it has any rough edges. So that's agenda item number 1. Get rid of all the HR ladies.
Oh, oh my, oh my, oh my. Oh my, get rid of HR ladies. Oh my. Interesting. Oh my.
Just fire them.
Oh.
And then we'll see how it shakes out. If your company has too few women, that might indicate that you have a problem with your recruiting pipeline. On the other hand, it might not. Either way, we're not going to send a team of lawyers after you to second guess you. It's funny, HR departments are always so careful about making sure the atmosphere at the workplace is welcoming to women. I wonder if they ever considered that maybe their soggy, conflict-averse, nicey nice atmosphere might not be welcoming to men.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. You hear them laughing in the background.
The other thumb on the scale, obviously, is the two-income trap. Women
he's got that look like get him, get him.
Pursue careers because they have to for their families to attain a middle-class standard of living. If we address that through various other policies to make it possible for families that want to have one earner to do so, I think the problem of feminization will subside on its own as individuals make different choices based on what's best for their own families. That's just my prediction. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's get rid of the two-income trap and give people.
Yeah, I guess discussing with men who are afraid of their women. I think the tide is turning. Okay. I think the tide is turning. It's the state that made men afraid of the women. It's not the men themselves. Okay. The Leviathan.
Choice, and then we'll see what happens. In conclusion, feminization is a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
I am acutely aware of the sensitivities because I am, of course, myself a woman. I very much enjoy being a writer, and I would never want to discourage another woman from pursuing the path that I have followed. On the other hand, I am also someone with a lot of disagreeable opinions. So if society becomes more conformist and less welcoming to ideas that are controversial or unpopular, I'm also going to have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
The important thing to remember is that it's not about what's best for me personally. It's about what's best for the society I live in and the society my children are going to grow up in. So my final exhortation to all of you is that we should all consider this difficult topic unselfishly, not from the perspective of what's to our individual advantage, but from the perspective of what's best for all of us. Thank you.
Families too, making men more differential. In fact, feminism has had the opposite effect on families. Okay. especially in the Black community, because because women are married to the state more than they're actually married to the man. The unfortunate issue is our perceptions as people is that we soften our criticism of ideas based on who presents the ideas. Well, that's just being people. With the exception of HR, QA, EHS, and marketing, sales, there's very few women doing heavy lifting in manufacturing, none in automation, industrial maintenance, infrastructure, etc. All men and plenty. They don't even start businesses, okay? My daughter had a six-figure job telling 40-year-old plus men about construction. She spent the first 3 months calling me while I walked her through what to do step by step. Can you say woke people? Oh, BLM was what BLM was what we call AstroTurf. That was Soros's deal. Actually get certain people out of office. They come to my plant trying to sell temp worker services. Hold on. Some of the HR people. Let's see. Let's go back in. That is the speech. This is the one everybody sends me. I think it's the one that's called the gender shift. Okay. Play a little bit of that. Play a little bit of this. I hear you, Johnny Vegas. I didn't see strong, authoritative men growing up, and it set me back. Yeah, because it was illegal to do it. Okay. I worked in a factory where the temperature in the summer would get up to 112. The 22-something HR woman would hire middle-aged women for the job. White women hijacked civil rights and affirmative action. They hijacked it. So 80%, 83% of it went to white women. And I think 90% of affirmative action actually went to women. Okay, cool, ninja person. Anyhow, let's play a little bit of this, and then we're going to get out of here. So basically, I mean, it's already helped Black men, okay? Even though DEI and some of the affirmative action stuff was stripped all the way back to 64 because Johnson put in sex in 68, so he stripped it all the way back to 64, 65, okay? So that means that most of the advantages that white women accrued are gone. And so now it's skills based only. So, Black men, we never got a break anyway. Okay. We have to compete with white men over the jobs and the positions in school, which is fair. Okay. But we don't have Becky poking her nose in trying to take our spot and not competing. Yeah, we need a woman to criticize women and men for men, race for race, etc. The thing is that under the current, you gotta remember, 56% of the voters are actually women. Okay, and really mostly white women. So if you approach them too harshly, they will punish you. I inherited a stud mechanic who couldn't fix jack shit. She had to remove a gear reducer and instantly said, "I'm a female, though." That's a female. Anyhow, let me go ahead and play a little bit of this, and then we're gonna get out of here.
To show up in the most unexpected places. I think the moment that I knew wokeness was different than PC or any of the old previous iterations was when people started getting fired from NFL teams or from NASCAR
Yeah.
Now, why is NASCAR displaying wokeness? You would think that would be the last place you would want to look to find it. And it didn't seem really to be ideological at all. The common pattern was feminization. You debate them on the basis of reason and evidence. But there were enough women who said that what Larry Summers had said was beyond the pale, that they were able to extract from him not one, but 3 statements of apology, and eventually tar him as a misogynist. So these women were able to take down one of the most powerful men in America without ever really offering any evidence or even any argument that he was wrong. They just said that what he said was offensive, made them want to throw up. And that is the style of debate that characterizes wokeness.
That begins with cancel culture. That's where it started.
It's not having conversations, but shutting down conversations.
Yes.
And this is interesting because I don't remember, I wasn't politically active at the time. But I don't remember in my knowledge of the conservative movement, many people coming out and defending Larry Summers. I mean,
Well, he's
I don't
a
think a lot
Democrat.
of, yeah,
He's a
exactly.
Clinton guy.
I don't think a lot of people would want to have defender of Larry Summers on their resume, but nevertheless, it wasn't made into a cultural issue. It was just like, oh, the board at Harvard gave him a no confidence vote, and there's going to be a change in leadership. But there's a lot of second wave feminists that don't like this wokeness. Okay, lots of them. A lot of the old fashioned feminists from the 60s and 70s, they don't like this wokeness stuff. Read an article from a journalist named Jay Stone. That's all that we know him by.
He's not even a journalist. He's just a guy on the internet.
A guy on the internet who in 2019, I believe, connected this to the broader phenomenon that we were seeing in cancel culture.
Yeah.
Saying this is not just brand new. This did not come out of nowhere. There are precedents for this at the top levels of American society. And you say, quote, the entire woke era could be extrapolated from that moment, from the details of how Summer was canceled, and most of all, who did the canceling? Women. So tell us a little bit about this essay and extrapolate for us.
It really was one of those moments where things that had been fuzzy crystallized instantaneously. It's one of those, it's a thesis where once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. Like a lot of people, I was puzzled by the eruption of wokeness. The summer of 2020 really seemed like an episode of mass hysteria. Just like the whole country went crazy. And there have been a lot of theories for why, right? Some people theorize that it's social media, that it's all the phones now. And so we're living in this great global gossipy village. And that's why rumors and suspicion and woke targets tend to be taken down so easily.
The monster with 1,000 ears and 1,000 eyes seems a little bit more real when you're on social media.
That's right. And then there are other people who think that wokeness is a substitute religion, and that therefore it's the decline of church attendance and church affiliation, the rise of the nuns, that leads to wokeness, because that's just something that everybody needs. And if you don't get it from your church, you're going to get it from an ideology. There are some people who see an ideological genealogy of wokeness. They say it's cultural Marxism, and that spread on the universities, and the universities
Nah, not really.
infected everybody else. And that's why we got wokeness everywhere all at once. All of those theories have merit to them, but there were, in most cases, something about the mechanism didn't seem to be entirely clear to me.
Right. If I may, I mean, one of the interesting things about the idea that it's just repurposed cultural Marxism, right? We've just branded it in a sexier way now. That doesn't fully track, because if you go back to the Frankfurt School, I mean, some of the work that Herbert Marcuse was doing wasn't quoting Marx for his theory of no tolerance for intolerance. He was quoting John Stuart Mill. He cites Mill 11 different times in that work. John Stuart Mill, the classically liberal guy, the libertarian hero that, of course, went a little crazy at the end of his life and became a socialist. But
it was his wife.
Yeah.
Socialism, the social contract came out of the liberal France. That's where it came out of. So liberal France and liberal England is where socialism actually came out of. Okay.
That was cherchez la femme in the case of Mill. That was a problem there.
But that's why it's always been a curious intellectual track for me to say that this is just cultural Marxism rebranded.
It's because we don't want to look within and our own sort of intellectual inheritance to see what the problems might be there. We can just say, oh, it's the dirty communists. Sometimes it is, but in this case, I think it's probably not. The weakness of the wokeness is cultural Marxism theory for me is that I saw wokeness erupt in areas of our society that are not remotely Marxist, like big business, Fortune 500 companies. Wokeness tended to show up in the most unexpected places. I think the moment that I knew wokeness was different than PC or any of the old previous iterations was when people started getting fired from NFL teams or from NASCAR. You know, why is NASCAR displaying wokeness? You would think that would be the last place you would want to look to find it. Or Wall Street.
You know what it was? Really what it was, why they started getting fired from NASCAR and NFL and NBA is because 40% of your tickets, your fans were actually female. That's where it came from. So it's called money, called capitalism.
Firms. These are not hotbeds of wokeness. And it didn't seem really to be ideological at all. The common pattern was feminization. That is, if you look at survey data, women are much less in favor of free speech than men.
True.
Typically, if you ask women, would you allow to speak on your campus somebody who said that transgenderism was a mental illness? Would you allow to speak on your campus somebody who said that Black Lives Matter is a hate group? Women are much more likely to say, no, shut that down. And men are much more likely to say, I disagree, but let him speak and we'll talk it out. Wokeness seems to me like a repudiation of rational debate. And as I read through this essay by the pseudonymous Jay Stone, it seemed to, he made the case that these woke patterns of behavior match female group dynamics in ways that are sort of deeply encoded in human society and have been explored by experts and found to just be ineradicable.
Mm-hmm. So unpack that a little bit more for us. These patterns of female behavior. At some points, I believe he and you use the term feminine modes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is feminine about this? Because you had a critic from the New York Times, one David French, who I've been doing a good job not hate reading David French, but when I saw that he was writing in response to your essay, I instantly clicked on that and read it. And he's not very nice to you, of course. You know, evangelical Christianity needs to be a whole lot nicer, except for all the people that I disagree with. He says that you're kind of ignorant of men and you idolize men, and that you're ignorant of history. And he says, don't you know the French Revolution? There were purges and the guillotine. It wasn't women up there cutting people's heads off. It was men. And I think that goes to your point that there's been purges and cancellations, if you want to call them that, throughout history. This is something very different.
It's funny. I also usually don't read David French, but I did read this one, and I was talking over this column with a friend of mine who happens to have a PhD in political theory and is an expert in specifically, the thought of the era of the French Revolution. So he knows more about French political thinkers than.
No, she didn't mention the manosphere. It was actually a woman in the Atlantic that wrote a piece on her saying that America is becoming the manosphere. That's where it came from. And she is a modern day Esther Villar. Yeah.
Anybody I've ever met. And
somebody has to do it.
I know.
Yeah.
He had something to say in David French's defense, which I thought was really fascinating. He said, well, I guess we definitely can lay the French Revolution at the foot of masculinity because it was a rhetorical trope of the Jacobins that the political system of France under the king and the royalists had been dominated by whispering and the conversations of the salon and the court.
It's an effeminate politics that has corrupted this town.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it has been secret.
Yeah.
What we need to have, they said, is open, manly arguments where we talk to each other directly.
That's part of the social contract. They actually are bringing down from the elites down to the common man. That's what America was actually based on.
None of this whispering and rumor and courtly nonsense at the salon. We need to have open, manly arguments. So that was, and in that case, it led to people getting their heads cut off. But I don't see any reason why that should necessarily follow one from the other. But that is true.
Right. So that's a masculine mode of.
That's right. There are masculine modes of failure. Men do crazy things, and so do women.
Right. Maybe again, coming to French's defense, wouldn't you rather have the feminine failure over the masculine failure? If the masculine failure.
Let's skip ahead a little bit because they're getting really deep into philosophy and it'll drag it down.
You might want to go to a more female-dominated institution. It all depends on the purpose, task, and I'm going to see what happens. And you really do see that the men will shout at each other and have conflict and then settle into a pecking order, and there will be kind of a top dog and tell the other ones what to do. And then at
As
the
a
end,
mom of 3 boys, you have no idea what that looks like at all.
I know. The top dog can be magnanimous or not, depending on his mood. Thinking about my oldest, and then women will not establish a hierarchy.
No,
and even before in a female group,
they want connection. Okay, everybody wants to be equal.
Before they even address the task that you've given them, like you've given them a puzzle to put together or whatever, they will first go around the circle and introduce each other and say, okay, let's take turns. Where are you from? Let's bond. The men will not do that at all. Like, even if you tell them, I'm going to be evaluating you on group cohesion at the end of this. So you need to get to know each other.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're from.
That's what HR is for. Okay. HR is for group cohesion. Okay. In other words, bring equity. In other words, bring it down to where everybody feels comfortable, especially the women, right?
Let's do the thing. Men are task oriented, whereas women are relationship oriented.
Yes.
And neither one is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are great. It's just that for different purposes, one might be more well suited or not. If you're trying to get something done, to get something done, guys might have a lot going for them. If you're trying to build an institution that's going to last, that has relationships that will endure, something that will help your community, then that you might want to go to a more female-dominated institution. It all depends on the purpose.
Right. And you don't need to go deep into psychology to understand this if you're not interested in picking up briefs on these various studies that have been conducted, right? I mean, just look at social media. I mean, or just stand-up comedy. It's one of the oldest jokes out there. I mean, my wife showed me a video on Instagram last night, and it was a man in his 30s making coffee, and the caption was, "Point of view, you just decided to let your wife host the Wednesday morning Bible group at 7 a.m. in your house." And so he's pouring himself a cup of coffee, and with an echo effect attached to it, his wife is reading this script saying, "How are you? What's going on?" And he's just there with a 1,000-yard stare, drinking his coffee, right? That's not how men operate. Men, they would have come in, sat down, got themselves a cup of coffee, not talked about the day, not talked about what the dog, what's going on with the dog at the vet, whatever.
What's the verse?
What is the verse? Today? What are we doing today? Get down to business.
Yeah, instead of the preamble. That's sometimes one thing we find out by talking to May, okay, observing, is she wants to tell a whole story before she actually gets to the point. Well, I'm getting to the point. No, bitch, get to the point. Okay. Give us the preamble and the story after it. Okay, because we'll forget the point by the time you actually get to it. And normally they do. They forget the whole point.
Although, if I can jump on that for just a second.
I have heard of Camelia Packley, for a long time. She says she disagrees with wokeness. Okay.
There is nothing older.
And she's not the only one.
Than differences between the sexes and gender conflict. But I never pass up an opportunity to emphasize that the great feminization is something new. Men and women have always operated in different ways and had conflict based on that. But there has never been a society in the history of planet Earth where women have been a majority of lawyers, or a majority of doctors, or a majority of managers in management positions in businesses and nonprofits.
Yes.
That is just completely unprecedented. So whether or not you think feminization is a problem, everybody, even people who hate me and think I'm a hater, need to acknowledge that we are in uncharted territory here.
Mm-hmm.
Like the great feminization is definitely going to cause new challenges or new changes to the way
There's no solutions. There's only trade-offs, right?
Society functions that we have never seen before. Not our country, not any country.
You can already see the actual decay in society right now because of feminism, because it doesn't work. It's not working, okay? Because the men are giving up. Because the men used to work 50, 60, sometimes 80 hours taking care of their family, right? Because they believed in it, right? What happens when the men don't believe in the society anymore? Nothing gets done. That's how come your country's falling apart right now.
So if you listen to the things I'm saying and say, "Wow, that sounds apocalyptic. That sounds crazy. I know men and women are different, but they're not that different. These are huge sweeping changes you're talking about. Is that really what we're going to see?" And have to come back and hammer, yes, because we are in unprecedented territory.
Yeah. Well, this was something that Jordan Peterson got in trouble for some 5 years ago when he did an interview with Vox, where Vox or something like that, but a Vox-like publication sent a reporter to Jordan Peterson's house to interview him, and he was talking about. Jordan, why are you highlighting all these differences between men and women? Don't you think we're all individuals? And Jordan gave his reply, and the rebuttal was, but we have both men and women in the workplace. That seems to have worked out pretty good for everybody, right? Everybody's richer. Men and women get to take home the page and get to bring home the bacon, blah, 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 blah. And Jordan just kind of cut him off and said, I think the verdict is still very much out on that question. And he was pilloried for it. I know that, for years under your tutelage, I know this has been something that you've been thinking about for quite some time. Particularly when it comes to modes of failure with feminization, right? That the important part was that a conversation was had, less so that the conversation yielded results. And this was something that came across in Kathy Young's response to you in The Bulwark, prioritization of group cohesion. I thought this was so interesting. she says she doesn't want to give you the satisfaction of proving her point, but still engages in this necessary exercise. So let me read this quote. Quote, let's not mince words. This is a grotesquely misogynistic screed. The inevitable rejoinder, of course, is that such a charge is not a...
It's only blank slate when it's to their advantage, right? Because when it's something that either they don't want to do or they can't do, then I'm a woman. Okay. Especially when it comes to splitting the bill. Okay. Who pays for the first date? Not a blank slate theory then.
Rebuttal. Facts don't care about your feelings. And if you're a woman who says that Andrew's narrative is noxious instead of asking whether it's true, you're actually proving her point. Well, I mean, the question is, why is she compelled to engage in this exercise at all? If she knows it's going to cut her argument off the knees, why do it?
And
sorry, I don't mean you to be turning into...
White men do not hold their women accountable. They never have. Pedestrian attack. Appreciate you, Kubert.
Psychologist for Kathy Young. I don't wish that on anybody.
I don't know why Kathy Young is the way she is. But one aspect of her article is something that I've seen from a lot of criticisms of the essay that I wrote, which is that I made the point in an inflammatory way or in a not sufficiently intellectually serious way, and they hold up as an alternative that was a better articulation of this feminization thesis, the work of Corey Clark, who I admire a great deal, PhD, haver, credentialed academic, doing good original work.
And black men are even worse at holding black women accountable. They're even worse than white men.
On the coincidence of the feminization of institutions and the rise of wokeness within them, and the survey data that shows that women tend to adhere more closely to woke ideology. I don't have any problem with the peer-reviewed, high-quality academic work that Corey Clark and her colleagues put out on the subject of feminization, but I think it's a sufficiently important topic that people other than peer-reviewed academics should be able to join the conversation. I also think that there are aspects of feminization that are not always clear to peer-reviewed academics, that don't always show up in their national surveys of political opinion, that are more likely to come from firsthand experience, anecdotal experience of what it's like to live.
They don't hold them accountable. They patronize them.
What it's like to work in an office where the HR lady has a veto over everything, or observations of how woke cancellations occur. Like
very, very true, BMI. Conservatives, it would have never happened if conservatives hadn't implemented a lot of this stuff. Okay, because your Title IX and your Title X, which is Title IX, Title X. What is it? No fault divorce. Okay, those are Republicans, conservative Republicans that put that shit in. Okay, now they find out it doesn't work. They want to blame it on liberals.
Storyteller will have a lot to say about how feminization is or is not reflected in that.
Right.
So,
can you imagine the type of vetoes that are existing in peer-reviewed journals?
That's self-censorship, and this is. Anytime you're talking about gender differences, you need to think about what kinds of expertise you're going to accept or reject. And for a lot of people, they assume that the kind of expertise that's going to matter the most is that of psychologists and gender psychologists particularly. I am all in favor of the scientific method and subjecting hypotheses to empirical study. However, I note as a matter of history that psychologists in general and gender psychologists specifically have a track record of saying things that are completely crazy, that common sense would have told you was completely absurd. The trans stuff is the most obvious example where they're saying things that are transparently false. But leaving that aside, even for the moment, it was the gender psychologists throughout the 80s.
Shout out to Obama for the trans stuff, okay?
90s, who assured us that gender was pure socialization. They were the ones saying,
yeah, here we go.
Hey guys, I did a study and it turns out if you give your daughter trucks for Christmas instead of dolls, all of this gender stereotype stuff will disappear.
Here we go with the blank slate, okay? That they're talking about right here.
Now those were peer-reviewed study. Those were experts and professors who were saying these things. And it was definitely an example of the common phenomenon where the people who are most credentialed in a subject say the most insane things, and that you would have been better off at that time listening to somebody with common.
Hey, Doc, until you came up with BMI, black male independence, and black male empowerment, right? The white boys were sitting on their thumbs, right? After you did that, and after they black men came after Stacey Abrams, okay, that's what actually opened up all of this stuff. All this stuff to actually come through. The white boys got off their asses. So shout out to you.
Sense. Or somebody with 4 kids who says, I've got daughters and sons, and let me tell you, they're different. So I appreciate the contribution of academics and experts to the.
It was white women that hated black men getting rights that they didn't have. They did it once when black men got the right to vote, okay, and the suffragettes were created, and they did it again in '64 and created feminism to actually battle back so black men would not get rights that white women didn't have.
This conversation, but I don't think they should be the only ones there. And I also tend to think that one of the reasons why people privilege the academics who weigh in on this over nobodies and journalists and people without fancy credentials like yours truly is that the academics are more likely to say, well, we can't say if it's good or bad. I'm just presenting data. I'm not coming to a judgment. It's got pluses and minuses. We just need to think seriously or think critically about this new development. Whereas I think at this point, it's more important to be able to say, look, if the trends of wokeness within the legal field continue on the trajectory they are on now, that will lead to the end of the rule of law, and that will not be an interesting new development that has some pluses and minuses. True. That will be a catastrophe. That is something that we don't need to study.
1984 all over again, right? That's where they're headed.
We need to prevent. So that's where I'm coming from. I think some of these problems caused by feminization demand solutions. They are huge problems that threaten to harm a lot of people and that need to be addressed with some urgency.
Well, it's such a good point. I mean, borrowing a term from Anton, the celebration parallax, where it was in the 80s and 90s, these gender psychologists were demanding that we have Fat Barbie because we need to,
here we go.
Soften our gender stereotype.
Yeah, there we go. Inclusion. Appreciate you, Barry Little.
And our gendered expectations, because all of this is socialized at the end of the day. Well, fast forward 25 years later, after transgenderism starts.
Why are we still here, Theo? Okay. Why are we still here? You already know, right? Most of us is this, right? Where is it?
I got nowhere else to go. I got nowhere else to go.
That's most of us, okay? Anyhow, a little bit more, finish this up, and then we're going to get out of here.
Take off, and people who are doing the work to show that transgender ideology and transgender identity is a social contagion when it enters particular friend groups, that seems to at least have a touch point.
And they're teaching the transgenderism in the schools, okay? California protects transgenderism. They actually encourages it, right? They hide that shit from the parents on purpose. That's why it starts out in academia and spreads throughout the whole social system, okay? That's what's going on with it right now. So transgenderism is an effect and being taught to kids in elementary school, okay? They've been socialized to do that. Black men pave the road and system snatches the tools and take the photo ops like they started something. Yep. Anyhow. Let's go ahead and get out of here. Like I said, Fat Barbie and transgender and stuff like that. That basically the Prussian school system actually socializes kids that effectively, right? That's why the feminists in the 60s went after the schools first before they actually went after the workforce. Title IX went after the schools K through 12 first. There was a reason for that. Yeah, wokeness is an umbrella term for the so-called radical liberal left, which they stole it from the conscious community, which was the black really conservative radicals, okay, in the black community, where actually the conscious community, they actually took it, that idea, put it into liberalism, to white liberalism, and changed the whole meaning of the whole word. I need to start this 45K year job isn't it. Nope, not in this country. No, it's not. Anyhow, let me get out of here, and I will holler at y'all later. I just wanted to touch on this. Maybe we'll do a little bit more of it, maybe, or might be better for somebody like Dr. T or Dr. One of our doctors actually take a hold of it and go through it, because this is their bailiwick. Okay, Dr. Neal can actually get into it. Maybe even Dr. Else can actually get into it. But thing is, Their specialty in this field is Dr. T and Dr. Neil. That's their specialty, okay? And maybe if Green Gorilla actually wants to weigh in on it, because he's a philosopher. So this is their bailiwick. Anyhow, let me get out of here. And I will see you guys tomorrow, okay? So peace and blessings. And here's the guy that started a lot of this wokeness, okay?
And with that, I just have two more words to say. Obama out.